This is Envision Self-Healing Podcast, episode number 50. Hi, I'm Will Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
And we are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated in helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands.
Now, if you haven't done already, head over to our website at EnvisionSelfHealing.com where you can get your hands on a free ebook that has 10 top tips on how you can improve your eyesight in our modern day world.
And the topic of the week this week is, what is presbyopia? And in the second half of the podcast, we get a question from my trainer, actually, who asks, I am sensitive to sunlight, but I don't wear sunglasses. Why is that?
So, Richard, how's the world of self-healing been treating you this week?
Well, this is the last week I promised that I'm going to be reporting on the condition of my butt. But it was an interesting week. It actually applies to vision improvement as well. Mm-hmm. So what I discovered was it was starting to hurt again. And the one thing that would help the pain, that would eliminate the pain, really.
Sorry, hold on. This is from you going to the gym
right.
on a regular basis.
Right. Okay, back up. Yeah. Backing up. I have optic atrophy, and I made the decision at the beginning of the year as a New Year's resolution to increase blood flow to my eyes through an aerobic exercise program. So I started going back to the gym, did a spin class, as well as got a trainer. And the spin, I don't know what did it to me, but potentially it's the spin class and leaning forward, and I started getting back problems, which I've had in the past. This trainer I'm working with is very good, and so he's been working me out despite my back problems, and he's been really emphasizing my posture. Mm-hmm. So,
that's great.
Yeah, and so this week the thing I discovered was if I keep my posture correct, the pain goes away.
Nice.
And my trainer's been very good at monitoring my posture as I'm weightlifting and things like that. So that's all very good. So it's come to the point where I have to have good posture in order to be pain-free, which is a great thing in the long run, but it's kind of a pain in the butt, shall we say, in the short run.
Excuse the pun.
Excuse the pun, yes. So, and I was so now it's like, for me, it's like his emphasis is he says a tangerine under your chin.
Okay.
To give the
he wasn't saying that you've got a double chin.
No, actually, he said do have a double chin.
Oh, okay.
Which is
not just clarifying.
Yeah. Now he said use your head and neck so you do have a double chin, which is sort of like, it's not the sort of thing you want to do actually. But he said the alternative is to think of a tangerine underneath your chin, and you're holding it against your bone here. Okay. So that's another way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And then there's the using the transverse abdominis as a girdle around your abdominal region so you're pulling in. Not everybody believes this, but it does work. You're pulling in on the transverse abdominis, these sort of diagonal abdominal muscles running around here, to create that kind of girdle effect of holding your stomach up and your lower back, and then not overarching your basically not creating too much of a lumbar curve.
Okay, makes
sense.
So
all that makes sense, right? And then for me, it's again about the chest being open enough here, and he had me laying on a foam tube. We've done that before, to create more openness here. And then he's creating a lot of...
And by here, you mean your chest.
My chest, sorry, for the listeners. Openness in the middle of my chest. And then exercising the muscles that bring the shoulder blades together and down. So doing exercises. So all of that's creating better posture that relieves the pain in my butt. And right. So the connection to vision, this is where I got to. This is the metaphorical connection to vision. Now, obviously, my posture comes almost partially from my vision.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit why?
Yeah, it's something called myopic posture, and I suppose I really have optic atrophy posture. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is because you don't see as well, you're leaning your head forward, creating an imbalance in your whole spinal structure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will find in between their shoulder and their chest, there's a little area there that if you push, you'll feel quite a bit of tension in there, and you'll notice that your shoulders are slightly rolling forwards, and you can indeed roll your shoulders back slightly, and you'll feel that space in between the shoulder and the chest there sort of open up.
Right.
And that's with the rounding of the shoulders there, and then also the leaning the head
forward, which even leads to jaw pain in me because I'm straining the muscles in the neck that connect into the jaw there. So this is all good for me. And I was thinking back to my, where did I get this posture? Well, it is the vision part, but I was realizing I have the same posture my father had. But he had the same vision problem. So, And where did he get that from? Well, his father had the same vision problem. So maybe, who knows what causes what under these conditions. But in any case, I've now got this posture, and that posture actually leads to less blood flow because you're creating kind of kinks in the hose to a certain degree.
Yeah, and restricting blood flow around the body. Yeah,
so all of that relates to vision. But it even further metaphorically, here's my metaphorical part, is if you get the having correct posture is sort of like having good mechanics with your eyes. Like if you use them properly, it takes away the strain that you're putting on the eyes, and then it's like having proper alignment in your spine. It's all good for your eyes if you use them. It's sort of like having good eye posture. That's the metaphor I'm going for. Yeah,
that makes sense. And I guess it's easier for, as you know, since children we're told sit up straight, don't slouch. Although we're expected to sit for 7-8 hours in a classroom or in a chair, and then come home and sit at a desk for several hours and expect the back muscles to not get tired and not slouch. Right. But it's a bit easier for us to think of physical posture and poor habit, as opposed to poor habit with our eyes and how we use our eyes. Right,
and I guess the metaphor is like you say, if you sat for 6 hours, your back would hurt. If you looked at a screen for 6 hours, your eyes are going to hurt. So you're needing to use your whole body. You're needing to use proper mechanics, proper ergonomics, including your eyes. So that's my metaphor.
Nice.
Metaphor for the week.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
All right.
Richard Miller's metaphor of the week.
Metaphor of the week, yes. So, how was your week?
Good. The sun's been out this week in San Francisco, so I've been able to get plenty of sunning exercise in this week, which certainly makes my retina feel happy and lifts my mood a little bit. Hence, I'm living in California. And not somewhere that's a bit rainier. I'm not going to name any places.
Yeah.
You could probably tell from my accent what I'm talking about there. But we went for sort of the beginning of really nice weather, I think, here in San Francisco. And Richard and I went for a nice, I guess what we call a vision walk, which is where we, choose a nice landscape where there's lots of distance looking, get plenty of nice fresh air, enjoy the nice sunshine. And we went with our friend Bob, who is visiting here from Portland. So we went on a nice vision walk, the three of us, and discussed vision improvement.
We did, yes.
And all the rest of it.
Thank God no one else went with us because they'd be bored to death.
Yeah. So I'm now going to relay that whole conversation. No, I'm joking. But the big thing for me is we were walking across Golden Gate Bridge, and that's not a big thing for me. I'm not afraid of bridges or anything. And it is a fantastic bridge. But I noticed that as I was looking forward, I was able to see the traffic on the far left-hand side of the bridge, which is something that I had never really tuned in before. And this is the thing with when you really start getting into natural vision improvement, is that it's not so much about what somebody is telling you what you see, it's about what you're observing yourself. So even if, I went and got my eyes scanned, they would have said my periphery was the same, probably as it was, a couple of years ago. But for me, I notice more on a regular basis improvements, things that I see that I wouldn't otherwise have seen without doing the exercises, or indeed, changing my lifestyle and my habit, just as what Richard was just talking about here. So I knew that I've crossed that bridge maybe once or twice a year. Walking wise, it's not something I tend to do too much, although I would like to one day maybe run a marathon across it, which is a goal of mine, but that's a few years away yet. So I noticed that as I was walking down the right-hand side, and I think I do have a picture, so I'll stick it up on our Facebook fan page. You'll also see some pictures of us and Bob there on the bridge. That we got quite a few likes and comments. I think you'd
I did see that.
Appreciate Richard. So as I was walking down the bridge, normally I could only really see right in front of me and maybe a little bit of traffic coming by on my immediate left. But this time I was able to make out the traffic on the second lane crossing and also the wires that hang on Golden Gate Bridge on that far left side. And that's definitely something that I had not noticed before. So that was really unexpected. I wasn't thinking about, I wonder if I can see more on Golden Gate Bridge this time. But it was certainly something that I noticed. And it was a real good observation to have, and then we went and had some fish and chips.
We did. They were good fish and chips too.
They
were. When I'm with Will, I occasionally order fish and chips, but it's dangerous because he knows exactly what they should taste like. And these were really good.
I'm quite the fish and chip critic.
Well, and you didn't tell.
Maybe that's a new job.
The surprising, we got hit by a motorboat on our ferry ride back. That was kind of shocking, but it was quite the eventful day. Yeah, it was
in the end.
Yep.
Well, I think it's a good time to move on to topic of the week.
And the topic of the week this week is, what is presbyopia?
Now, this really came from last week where we did what is nearsightedness or myopia. Just to elaborate a little bit more on what it is to help educate our audience a little bit more, those that haven't necessarily caught up on all the information on our website, or maybe doesn't necessarily want to spend all that time reading the information that we've put up there. So we explained a little bit more about myopia, and we talked about the elongation of the eye, and also pseudomyopia, which is something that's acquired through the stiffening of the lens. And it kind of made us realize that it would be a good chance to move into presbyopia and age-related nearsightedness, as they're very similar.
Yeah, and it's probably the second most common vision condition behind myopia. So, so presbyopia is, first and most, it's an age-related condition that usually comes on in the early 40s, sometimes late 30s, but mostly early to mid 40s. Sometimes people put it off into their 50s. And not everybody gets it. There are people who do not get it. So that kind of puts some question in that it's absolutely an age-related thing.
Yeah, I guess we could say, like most of these things, you might have a genetic predisposition to, developing presbyopia. As biological beings, we age, and there's not really anything we can do about that.
Definitely not that, yes.
Despite what the cosmetic world is trying to achieve, the fact is that we age, and it's an inevitability. I guess it depends on how graceful you want to take that. So, but we could say that with aging, yes, with the eyes, you also have that predisposition to worsening of the structure there and worsening of eyesight.
Right, and so the first factor is the stiffening of the lens, and that's the major factor. Is the lens becomes less flexible and more stiff.
And what's the lens good for?
The lens is for focusing. So as the light comes into the front of your eye, it goes through the cornea, which is the outer clear surface, and then it goes through the pupil, and then it's focused. And the pupil is the opening in the colored part of your eye, and then behind that is a lens, and the lens is supposed to round and flatten. So it's flat when it's looking into the distance, sort of like when your camera is focused on infinity. That's the lens being flat. And then when you're focusing on something close, these a ring of muscles around the lens, called the ciliary body or the ciliary muscles, contract and squeeze the lens and make it rounder, which then bends the light differently than it would if it was flat, and focuses focuses a close image onto the retina. That's the process.
So if you don't have that flexibility in that lens, then with pseudomyopia that we talked about last week, it meant that if you don't have that flexibility, it was stuck,
right,
rounded, so that when you wanted to look into the distance, the lens stayed round and it didn't flatten. So it means that image can't project nicely on the macula.
Right.
And what we're talking about this time is it's kind of stuck in the sense that you're not able to now fully round the lens, so it doesn't focus there
close,
on the back
right?
of the eye.
Well, and actually, it's slightly rounded. So a lot of people with presbyopia have difficulty focusing close and in the distance.
Yeah, it's kind of a medium, and maybe initially what people notice is the near, and I guess so many people are wearing glasses anyway, they wouldn't know that they were having greater difficulty seeing in the distance necessarily.
Right.
So they've got myopia.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up. The one peculiarity about myopia is, actually, let me put that off for a second. So the solution to presbyopia, the thing we do for it in our society, is we buy glasses that are in the plus lens category. So in myopia last week, we got minus diopter lenses for myopia. And for presbyopia, for looking close, you get plus lenses. And they're basically just magnifying glasses. They're like magnifying lenses in a pair of glasses. And they go from +1 to, you can get them outside the drugstore quite high, up to +10, things like that. But normally it's in the drugstore, you buy them between about +1 to +3 3/4, something like that. So what that's doing is that's allowing you're taking the place of the flexibility of your lens by these glasses, and now you can focus closer. Okay, now back to my myopia discussion. When you have myopia and you take off your glasses, your eyes become the version of a plus lens. Because you've taken off the minus lenses, your eyes are now plus. So it's like you're someone with nearsightedness, their natural vision without any glasses is like wearing one of those plus lenses you bought at the drugstore. So that's why if you have myopia, you might not believe you have presbyopia because you have a pair of those dime store glasses built into your eyes, and you just need to take off your nearsighted glasses. So a lot of people with myopia think, I don't have presbyopia, I can read just fine. But that's why. So you really do have it. But yeah.
So I guess one way to test is you notice that you start needing to move text further and further away from you in order to read it. And just one little exercise in itself would be to try and overcome that urge to try and push it further away, and indeed try and keep it where it is and shift and work with it in that sense. So the lens is getting stiff. It's not allowing it to round. And it also means that the ciliary muscles, which is in charge of actually contracting and rounding the lens, is also becoming weak and stiff as well.
Right. It's a combination of those two, yeah.
So what we do then to help improve it is, it just makes sense that you want to strengthen the ciliary body and you want to get flexibility back in that lens so that you're able to see clearer again from near. And we kind of like presbyopia. Because it's a little bit easier for us to work with than conditions like optic atrophy, retinitis pigmentosa. They really are incurable diseases of the retina. Right. Whereas you can see here after our explanation that with presbyopia, or age-related farsightedness as it's called, it's more about sort of the weakening and stiffening of the ciliary muscles and the lens. So just common sense. We all know with muscles that you can strengthen them and sort of bring some flexibility back in the body, even those that you see 80, 90-year-old people doing yoga or, in particular, I guess we get a lot here in San Francisco. You might see the Chinese community doing a lot of Tai Chi and a lot of flexible movements there in the park. And also, just that, like you get one of my clients, she is a senior yoga instructor that she works specifically with seniors. And she was, we were talking about this the other day, how people in their 80s and 90s are really, getting nice and flexible and coming back into their prime again. So this is how we view presbyopia as a lot more of a...
And this gets back to my first point maybe, is that... people who don't get presbyopia, maybe they have they're not genetically predisposed to it, but also maybe they happen to have a certain way of using their eyes that keeps that flexibility. Probably no one has ever studied that, is my guess.
And there's no real right or wrong or fixed way. People always say, well, we both read, or we both use our eyes the same way. How come he needs glasses and I don't need glasses?
Right.
We all know that everyone is an individual and everybody reacts differently.
Yeah.
It's the same as having two twins brought up the same way, but one might end up weighing, more than the other one. They
Right.
both eat the same, they both have the same upbringing, but it's just how our bodies are. We're just not the same. I guess if we were, then we would all look the same.
Yeah.
And that would be a bit weird.
It would be weird. Especially for you guys looking at us. That would be really weird.
You wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I think it's a good time to move on to question of the week.
And the question of the week this week comes from actually my trainer. And I'm helping him with his presbyopia. But the other day he also mentioned, he was actually looking at sun coming through a window and was bothered by it. He said, why am I bothered by the sun? So that's the question. And I further asked him about his lifestyle, and he said, no, I don't wear sunglasses at all. Or very rarely. So that's the question.
And the reason why Richard asked that question is because we feel that only in the last 50 years have we started pushing sunglasses on people as society. Very good marketing success there.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden, out of a couple of million years of evolution, we need to block our eyes from the sun. Otherwise, we go blind. I don't know what quite the rationale is there. So all of a sudden we need to wear these sunglasses. So what's happening is it means that our natural ability to block ourselves and
adapt to the light,
is being affected. So things like our pupil isn't constricting as much as it should when we're in bright light. Notice if that's you, you'll know because you'll squint when you're outside, and the facial muscles are trying to do the job of the pupil, which is to shrink. So if you notice that you're doing that, also, just on the natural sense of if you're not used to going out in the sun, and then all of a sudden you go out and sunbathe, well, there's a good chance you're going to get sunburn, no matter who you are.
Right, and we do draw the line at we do recommend sunglasses, even probably more so if you were out on the snow, climbing on the snow, skiing in the snow. That makes sense to us.
Yeah, and if you're driving and you've got the sun in your eyes, there is a time and a place for sunglasses.
Right.
But the problem is our modern day lives, we're spending so much time indoors in superficial lighting and artificial lighting, so that we very rarely spend time outside.
Yeah.
So when we do, on top of that, we're now putting sunglasses on, and that's not,
Yeah, and then people label themselves as, I have trouble with light. I have to always wear my sunglasses when I'm outside. I hear that fairly frequently.
Which just leads to further weakness.
Right. And that's hard to say to somebody. It's like, if you didn't wear them, you would be better. And they're just going to scratch their head and look at you like...
So that's why Richard asked that question first and foremost. What's your lifestyle? And he, Richard's trainer, said, I don't wear sunglasses.
Right. And then a light bulb went on, a sun bulb went on in my head, and I said, "So what's your life?" I finally realized he's a trainer. He's in the gym, 8-9 hours a day, and unfortunately, gyms they have windows, but they're not predominantly very bright places. Or there's a lot of artificial light.
I guess it's difficult because otherwise you'd have a lot of people just standing there watching the people work out.
Right. Well, they tend to be these big cavernous spaces with not that many windows. So, and that's the way his gym was too. So.
Right.
So just the act of spending that amount of time indoors was weakening his visual system to adapt to light.
And I think also you were saying, that he was indoors and the bright light was coming in from outside. His eyes were adapting to his environment, which is indoors.
Right.
Right. It would be dimmer lighting because the light bulbs that we use in our everyday world are not as bright compared to the sunshine.
Yeah.
So his pupils would have been dilated. He wouldn't necessarily have been adjusted to being outside. Probably more rod cells were switched on. But then when he looked at the light, all of a sudden he was asking his eyes to adapt to bright sunlight, even though he was indoors.
Right.
So he could be having that conflict there between the two, creating a sort of a strain in the eye.
Yeah, but even with my, optic atrophy, I found myself in a very similar, with the light hitting me in the eyes, and it didn't bother me. So that is the difference. It's and I think actually once you are bothered by it once and you start kind of avoiding it, it almost accelerates and the process. Yeah,
it definitely build up a fear. We get a lot of clients that come and see us, and we say, okay, now we're going to go out and go to the beach and do the sunning exercise, and they start sort of getting a bit upset. You know, they need their sunglasses, they need a hat, they need, we're all for hats. There's nothing against hats because at least your eyes are adapted there to the sun. But once we sort of get them out there, we say, okay, you got your hat and your sunglasses, and then we kind of face away from the sun, take the sunglasses off, look at the sky, do some skying exercise, and then do the sunning exercise. Then sure enough, it doesn't take long until their confidence are built back up again.
Yeah, exactly.
About being out in the bright light.
Yep. So there you go.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that was a good question.
Yeah, it was.
The week there. I'm sure a lot of other people are going to have more questions now. Sunglasses is certainly a topic that we come up against, and we're getting some pretty good feedback. Actually, a lot of people are saying that they're starting to come around to the idea that maybe wearing sunglasses all the time. I love seeing people wearing sunglasses indoors.
Oh yeah, on BART when it's like dark and you're almost in a tunnel.
I never get my head around that.
Or at night, that's always the best one to me. At night, you're wearing sunglasses.
So certainly, by getting that natural light, you're waking up the cone cells. Our eyes are designed to respond to light. So to shy away from that is sort of doesn't necessarily make sense.
Right.
We will certainly leave that up to the listeners.
Yes.
Decision there on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast and want a little bit more information about how eye exercises can indeed improve your eyesight, then head over to the Envision Self-Healing website. It's just envisionselfhealing.com, and you'll find plenty of information on there on eye exercises and indeed how you can start improving your eyesight. And also, if you haven't done already, check out our modern day guide, which is an ebook based on how you can improve your eyesight. And we talk a little bit more about what we just talked here on how the eyes are designed to, say, be outside in the sunlight. But in our modern day world, we seem to have adapted more to hiding away from it. So a really good book there on how you can find some more information on that. You can also check out our Facebook fan page where you'll see some pictures and Richard and I's going-ons. You'll see some pictures there of Golden Gate Bridge, and I'll try and remember to put up that one of the extra periphery that I saw there on the Golden Gate Bridge. And you can also keep updated with us on Twitter. Both Richard and I update and give some tips out there on the Twitter page. And if you're watching this on YouTube or any video, then click the subscribe button. You can subscribe there. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, then you could also subscribe on iTunes. And it means that you will get each one of our podcasts that we do every week. If you haven't had a chance already, then you could check out the Eye Exercise Express, which is kind of our solution to our modern day world and trying to fit eye exercises in. So you just head over to the website, you'll see the Eye Exercise Express there, or indeed if you're watching this video, then you could just click on the link at the end if you're seeing this on our website. Okay, great. Well, good luck with your eye exercises this week, everybody, and happy healing.
And have a good week.